Hi, in this video, we'll briefly discuss the earnings and the growth of a company. So under the common assumption that the purpose of a company is to maximize the shareholders' wealth, it is important for us to know how does this company distribute its net income. Before we get into the distribution of net income, we need to know the return on equity. It is simply calculated by dividing net income by the shareholders' equity. So think of this as a percentage that describes the ability for this firm to earn money based on how much has been invested by the shareholders. Okay, so the denominator here is the shareholders' equity. It is a monetary value. It is not the number of shares outstanding. So it's simply a monetary value here. Okay, so through the basic operations of the company, you will earn net income. Okay, so that is your revenue, and then deducted all of those expenses and costs. Okay, then you have your net income. So where can this net income go? So firstly, you can pay it out as the dividend to the shareholders, and the rest of it you can keep it in the company, or you can reinvest it, or it becomes the retained earnings here. So what do we do with the reinvestment here? It helps the company to grow. Okay, so the percentage or the ratio which will be retained or reinvested is called the plowback ratio. Okay, the plowback ratio. And obviously the ratio that you will pay out as a dividend is the 1 minus plowback ratio. Okay, and sometimes it's called the payout ratio. And then if you're given the payout ratio, then the plowback must be 1 minus the payout. Okay, so with the plowback, the firm can grow at this point. So the growth of the firm, or the growth rate, is actually calculated by the return on equity times the plowback ratio. So intuitively, we can think of an extreme case. So what if a company reinvests every bit of earning on its own? So the return on equity is basically how much the firm is earning here. Okay, so if it's 100% plowed back to the firm, then the growth rate is simply the same as the return on equity. So every bit of income is going back to the company, so it grows by the earning, the exactly amount of the earnings. So as a percentage, the growth rate is the same as the ROE here. Okay, so let's think about another extreme case, in which the company pays out all its earnings as dividend. So you can think of a company after carrying out its operations, and after having its earnings, all of these earnings are not kept in the company but rather paid to the shareholders. So that is a 0% plowback or 100% payout. So everything is paid out to as dividend to the shareholders. So will there be any growth for this company? No, because there's zero plowback. Okay, so the company or the board of directors can choose between any number between 0% or 100% as its payout ratio. And this ratio could be changed along the operations for this company. Okay, so the thing here is to know or to understand that the growth of this firm, or the growth rate of this firm, is basically your ROE, your return, or the ability to earn for this firm, multiplied by its plowback ratio. So you can think of this growth rate is also the growth rate for the dividend as well, because if you keep the plowback ratio or the ROE constant, then what is not being plowed back is going to be the dividend, right? So the dividend is also a part of the ROE. If the ROE or the firm, if the firm grows at a constant rate and the ROE stays the same, then the dividend would also grow at that rate as well. Okay, so you should be able to know that the growth from the growth of a company comes from the plowback of its earnings. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video.